I have two talks, longer talks and one lightning talk. And this one is about MailBox. And MailBox is, oh no, this should work. Yeah. So back in 1999, I was a teacher. I gave trainings in Unix and system administration and stuff and C programming. And then I had to start teaching in Perl. And it was about my 30th language to learn, so I thought I can do it, but it still took me about 2 years to really understand Perl. But yeah, how do you learn a language? Yeah, you have to start programming a little bit. And just try to automate all your internal processes and so on. And one of the things I started to do was, in the automation of our company, write some emails, send emails, automate emails. And there were some libraries like mail tools. I don't know whether you ever saw that, but that's really archaic email from the beginning of Perl itself. And I maintain it, but that's just not to let it die, because it's an example in many of the books, Perl books. But of course, there wasn't a time that MIME was just created. The MIME headers, as we all know now. And most of the MIME standards came around between 1995 and 2008, somewhere. So things like multiparts and so on. And MailTools cannot really do that in a nice way. So I created MailBox. And MailBox is one of the few big sets of email-related modules. Yeah, what I speak only about my own tools group. What it intends to do is to be a high-level mail language, a really, really high-level mail language, so that if you use the library, that you cannot do much wrong. Yeah, and it's pretty difficult doing email. If you see modules on CPAN which are called Mail Simple, for instance, then you're sure that it's a hard problem and that you should not use the simple. So it has a few separate modules at the moment. The MailBox is the basic, which is about handling folders and so on. The real box, you know, the inbox. Then a message, which is handling messages. Transport for sending and receiving, just to split it up a bit, because it is pretty large, as you will see. And then you always get a lot of spawn-off modules, which are optional and which can be reused. For instance, MIME types is really often used by all kinds of, oh, hey, that's nice. The pointer doesn't work on the screen. Okay, MIME types, it's converting file name extensions into types and so on. Well, so how does it work basically in MailBox? So yeah, the basic object, central object is the Mailbox manager. And if you use that one, you can just say, open this box. And there are many different kinds of boxes. You can have an IMAP inbox or a POP or the MailDir, MH. There are many formats for storing email messages. And the Mailbox manager hides those differences. But if you don't want to, you can also say, okay, I know it's an MBox, you can directly open it. Yeah, and so the idea is everything you can do with emails in all kinds of processing, like threat detection, how the message threads in a box are and so on, all that is supported, being supported. I had a lot of time in programming. So I use a very complex inheritance scheme. And that's why they sometimes call it lasagna programming. And I think it's also a bit of, how do you call it, a geuzennaam, a good, but it's also, I'm also happy that it's lasagna programming. When you have an object structure, complex object structure, and you have about 10 methods or something per level, then it's not too much, I think, to have this level. It saves you 10 if statements. You know, so if you have multiple levels, then you save yourself a lot of if statements. If you compare to a solution which is not using all these levels. So you have, for instance, in the MailBox, you have a mail message, and message can survive alone with it not being stored, and then it can be in a mailbox, and it can be a mailbox which is in a file, and then this is one of the few formats where multiple messages stored in the same file. But in the left tree, you see the directory way, and then you have one file per message, like other formats have. And this is not all the formats I support, but a few of them. So this is the logical structure. And one of the things what you get in this multi-level programming, that Perl documentation is not really supporting inheritance anyway. Yeah, you have this very simple thing like is item and so on. But to get all this code documented correctly, I had to add another layer of documentation, and I tried to get it into Perl standard software, but no one want to listen, so I had to. But now you can, if you have a method, for instance the MH, which is here on this level, for the method call you can see where the options come from for that method, for the new. Yeah? So a mail message is pretty complex if you have real mail. Your mail message has a header and a body, but the header might be partial. For instance, if you download from IMAP a message header, you get only a few of the fields, and you have to ask for the other fields. And if you want to do processing on them, add them, or remove them, or sort them, or print them, then you have to go to the full header and so on. So this is all hidden in the object system. And then the message body can be all different things in line, stored as separate lines, an array of lines, or sometimes you want to have it if there's a very big body in a file and so on. So actually, email messages are pretty difficult. And so this is object classes. And this is the first page, this is the second page, third page. So about 240 classes. And it's about 1,200 methods or so, and 13,000 tests. And these are only the modules I implemented myself, not modules from other people, which I also use. Email is not easy, come on. But using is pretty simple. So you can say, I want to have a body, create a body, and then I say in a file, and you kind of transfer encoding and so on, and then build from a body. So I made a body object, and then add some headers, and then send it via postfix. So usage is pretty simple. It can be even much easier. I want a message being built, some header lines. I have some data inlined. I have some attachments, and it will automatically figure out all the fields which you left out, a message ID, and so on and so forth. And that's the difference between other Perl sets of email modules. That you have these high-level automated methods like build. Well, okay, that's the common one, but also bounce, for instance, how to bounce or how to forward messages. So you get an automated a message from someone in, and you want to have an automated reply or an automated forward, and you want to reconstruct the message before it gets to the out again. That's and it handles structures like this. This is from my mailbox. Gladly, since recent RFC, you can also use UTF-8. But originally, you had to encode Søren's email address or name this way. And all these things are automatically supported for you. So just put an UTF-8 in, and it will automatically encode it this way if it is not ASCII, because standard MIME headers can only be ASCII. So it's now 25 years old. And well, I think it's midlife, so I needed a little bit of refreshment. It's still being used. And Simplest, for instance, I don't know if you know Andy Beverly from London. He has a mailing list server based on MailBox mainly. And there is also one, I should not mention the name, very large American spam filter company who passes 5 billion messages per day using MailBox. So it is being used. And but it's old stuff. So it's yeah. I update it all the time. I fix the bugs, but a lot of the code is never touched by fixing bugs. So there are some changes I want to make, and gladly NLnet Foundation is willing to support me for this. So I want to see whether all the RFCs are still matching. If a little bit upgrade. It's now 5.8 syntax mainly, and we are a little bit further away. I want to do some benchmarking. I never did any benchmarking on it. The documentation, you saw that the documentation looks a bit rough, you know, white page, boring, so should be a bit better. And the name is OODoc because my system was before Open Office existed, so that's why it's called OODoc. Error handling and so on. It's all my own way of doing it, and I want to have to use a bigger framework for it. So this is what NLnet helps me to do. So these were the new RFCs since the previous one. So I recently read them all just to see whether I needed to make many changes. So only a few things were new, and not all of the things were even being used in real life. So they have a nice RFC of something like multi-part, multilingual. They can make one email messages with different, and well, we looked into an archive of 2 million messages, and there was a single, not a single use of it. So then I will not implement it, you know. But so what do I do? I use I/O lines a lot. Well, for my implementation of Mailbox Fast of I/O Scalar, and that was the way with ties on a scalar to print in text buffers and so on. And we have much nicer ways now. I hope that's also faster. I think what I really love is the R in substitute. I really love that so much. Use base, use parents, that is from Max, and so on. So there are some syntax. I am not going too deep into using prototypes the new way and so on. That's not what I want to do, but just clean up till 5.16 or something around that level, I think. Okay, I want to improve the documentation. So this is a little show about my object ODoc documentation system. I told you the problem is that it's multiple inheritance, so that you cannot figure out really in which level of inheritance, which options are supported and so on and so forth. So I added a long time ago this extra set of is something. Can you read it in the back as well? So instead of is item, you can say is method clone, and then you can say here is option. That's so here on this level of inheritance, I add an option for clone and the default values and explanation, examples and so on. And on the moment that I release the modules, all this text is extracted. So you get separate pod files, real pod files, and separate PM files without documentation inside it. Yeah. And then the documentation is sorted alphabetically and so on, so it gets much easier to access. And it saves me a lot of work. I once counted in the beginning when I moved to that it saved me 70,000 lines of typing. So just by copy pasting what I otherwise had to do. So then on the moment that you produce the package to be released, it creates RealPod. So this is how the RealPod looks like. What should I point out this one as well? It's an M tag to refer to another method in some library. And it doesn't work out in pod because you cannot make these detailed links. You have the X thing, but it's not enough. But you can, with the M, you can even say to refer to one option within one method, within one package, and it understands inheritance as well, and so on. So in the pod, you will not see that because pod doesn't support it. But here, this is a pure pod, which is being released at the module, and it also produces real HTML. And then you have the real links in it. So. And it doesn't look really nice in HTML, but so this is what I'm going to clean up as one of the tasks. So this is how you can browse through this HTML. So it has the main documentation, but you have also all the options and the methods and so on, and the inheritance relations. And yeah, that's really needed for modules in this size. So exception handling is one of the next step what I have to do. I use a base class, like everyone uses a base class where you do the logging. But the base class is really poor if I compare it to modern logging systems. But I have to rewrite all these error messages, 482 errors, and so on. And so that will be my next part. So Mailbox midlife. 25 years more to go. So, any questions? Yeah, Max.
You said you were moving up you said you were moving the minimum Perl level upwards.
Yeah.
What is your criteria for choosing the target minimum Perl version?
What would you suggest, Max?
Well, personally, I've moved most of my modules up to 520 now because I like using the function signatures. But you already said that the signatures are not in scope for you redoing. So what is...
I don't know. Depends a bit what I really pick, but 520 is something I think it's now 8 years old, 10 years old, so that will be a nice one. And I will maintain the version 3 for some time, so people can add even some bug fixes there. But yeah, 520 something depends a bit on the features, and maybe someone is complaining about that they want me to convert things back or so.
I think for the newer work code we were using 520 of the work code that went onto CPAN, because it also had postfix dereferencing. Now there's whichever version postfix dereferencing comes in, and then there's two versions where it's experimental, it might change, and it doesn't. So if you do no experimental warnings, it's consistent. I can't remember whether we ran with this, but I did suggest to Ricardo that we should have some sort of module that will make it easy to say use the to de-experiment things that proved to work. You have to do it manually at the moment in 520. Turn off experimental warnings for postfix deref. I know I've digressed a bit, but if the feature hasn't changed, the two versions where it was experimental and didn't change, it's actually safe to use. Or you know the one place where there was a bug. But I think it was 520 you got function signatures and postfix dereference, and that was a good another one. But 514 is good because of backslash, the R operator. I love that.
I love that. Oh, that's the best invention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. The new the OOdoc syntax looks interesting. Have you considered putting that back to pod, or is that do we consider pod to be frozen and
How do you mean?
so you've added the
my syntax.
yeah.
I tried to in the beginning when I was still innocent. I tried to get a discussion on the pod mailing list to get a few very small changes, and that one never came anywhere. So I designed the pod for Raku. So I made two specifications for Damien Conway at the time to get a new way of doing pod there, and that made it partly true in Raku, but not for Perl.
Okay, so I've not used it before. Does it work as a pod preprocessor? Is that
Sorry?
Does it work as a pod preprocessor? Is that
how this my system works? Yeah. So on the moment that you release the module, you run a script, and the script just separates the pod and the PM and then creates real pod, and it creates real HTML. So not continuously. So for debugging, it's a little bit tricky. Let's say people come, they produce the error message on a different line than it is in my development source. Of course, you can also run the development sources with the pod in there, just a GitHub clone, and you can run that way and then see the right line, error lines. But in reality, I also have this extract. So I know the extract and I know the real one. So it's never an issue that you have to do it that way.
Like source filters, but for docs, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
One more question. Going?
No one for Perl versions anymore? For instance, MIME types, I once tried to lift that from 5.8 to 5.12 or something as module, but then everyone started to complain because that's already, it's ancient module and you have ancient production codes, and then so I cannot lift that from 5.8 up. But,
And they complained, but they weren't ever going to upgrade it anyway.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.